Guys, Master Guns here. I wanted to take a second before this video started up to preface. Now that I've gone back and edited the footage together, I noticed some errors that I made. The first one was when I was explaining strike point, I kept saying salvo. So just know that when that portion of the video comes up where I'm explaining how to do strike points and indirect fire, when I say salvo, I do actually mean indirect fire or strike point. So just keep that in mind going forward. It was just more trouble than it was worth to try and reshoot it, go back, edit that clip in. So I figured I would just shoot this little prologue, as it were. The second point that I noticed where I made a mistake was when I was explaining firing on prone targets and resolving the damage. Only 2 damage was done to the unit that was on the ground. That wasn't correct. I forgot to add in the RAV from the weapon that was shooting at the downed CAV, which would have actually made it 3 or potentially 4 damage tracks on the downed CAV. So just keep that in mind when that portion of the video comes up, and hope you enjoy it. Thanks. Guys, Master Guns here for video number 2. I had a good time making that video yesterday. It was pretty well received, and so I thought I'd take a minute today and do a second one. Excuse me. So first I want to take a second to make some clarifications that were brought to my attention by John Walker yesterday regarding some of the information that was in the prior video. With regards to facing changes as part of a free move action, facing changes are not free. That was in an errata that apparently I missed. But they are part of a move action. So even if your unit is going to stay still and just make a greater than 90-degree facing change, then you do have to pay a move action for that. Or even if it's less than 90 degrees, if you're just moving, 15 degrees, 20 degrees, whatever the case may be, that does cost a move action. But that being said, the firing arcs on CAVs are full 180 to the front, so there's really not a situation, unless you're being flanked, where you should have to do a complete facing change, because basically it's just considered that the CAV can move its torso fully to the right or fully to the left, or in the case of a tank, the turret can go all the way around at any given time. So just take that into account. Also, with regards to moving, the first facing change while you're moving is free, and keep in mind that that facing change can be done at any point along your movement track. And again, the first one is free. Any subsequent ones you have to pay 1 movement point for. So in the case of the Dictator, if you wanted to advance 2 inches, turn 45 degrees, and advance 2 more inches and turn another 45 degrees, that last turn would cost a movement point. So that would effectively end your movement ability right there for 1 action. Let's see, the second item I wanted to clarify was critical hits. In the video yesterday, I stated that critical hits were anytime you dealt 3 damage in a single turn. That was not entirely correct. That was a misinterpretation of the rules on my part. It's when you do 3 damage tracks from a single combat roll. So that would basically mean a 10 plus margin of success on your combat roll would then give you the possibility of doing critical damage. The reason that came about was someone on the forums, I'm sorry, not on the forums, but on the Facebook page, brought up, well, what about heavy particle bolt guns with their overdrive ability? Now, if you guys haven't really read the rules yet, particle bolt guns have the overdrive ability, which at a potential risk allow you to double the damage done by that weapon, which makes them very, very powerful, but at the potential of either overheating or exploding outright. So it's not without its cost. But the reason it came up was, well, if I fire my 1 gun and it does 2 points of damage, I use overdrive and it increases that to 4 points of damage. Do I get a critical hit? So the answer to that is no. It's 3 damage tracks in a single combat roll before any modifiers are put into place. So some additional information I wanted to go over before we move on to the purpose of this video, which is to go through each of the different combat actions and kind of the nuances of the different things you can do in combat, I wanted to go over some information. The main website for this game can be accessed at cavhq.com. That's cavhq.com. That will automatically send you over to the Talon Games website. Alternately, you can put in talon-games.com and get to the same place. The reason I bring that up is under the free download sections, there's a wealth of information that is free for you to download and just look over. That includes the Quick Start Rules PDF, full color unit data cards in PDF format, so you can download those, print them out for your own use. Full color counter sheet that you can print out on heavy cardstock and cut out for your use. The quick reference cheat card like I used yesterday. Full faction model list, so every model that's currently available and will be coming available is on those lists broken down so there's no confusion. And then the best part, in my personal opinion, is the CAV Strike Operations Force Manager and Construction Program. So for a lot of you Battletech players, you might remember Heavy Metal, or in the more later years, Solaris Skunk Works. CAV does have that same program. So like I said in the last video, there's a lot of customization that's possible in this game. Stock designs are great, but sometimes you want to build, you know, a Frankenstein unit. So this program allows you to do that. And it also has a Force Manager ability that has all the rules preloaded into it. So if you want to, you know, put your Terran force together, you open up this program, select Terrans. You can even select the faction doctrine you want to use. We'll get into that in another video if you guys aren't familiar with what that is. You select the faction doctrine, and that will put that into the drop-down menu for you. And then you can select each section, drop whatever units you want into that section. It'll tell you if that section's legal or not by the build rules. And then once all is said and done, you can print it out, and all the information you need, all the data cards you need, are all on, you know, however many sheets of paper you want to print it out onto. I think during the last CavCon, when I took my my Steel Dragons force, which was 12 units, it was on 2 pieces of paper. So it's about six units per page, all nicely put together. Everything prints very cleanly. So all you do is, in my case, I laminated it so I could use dry erase markers on it. But it's fantastic, and it's free to download. It is only available for Windows right now. I don't think it has a Mac version yet, but as I understand it, that will be coming shortly. So going past that, I want to also mention that CAV has several Facebook groups that are dedicated for it. If you go into the search bar on Facebook, the first one is CAV Strike Operations. That is the official page ran by Talon Games. So all the updates, everything having to do with the game is posted to there. There's several fan pages. The first one is Reaper Miniatures CAV Support Group. And that's just basically a fan page for all things CAV. And something that Ross Hines and myself have done on that site is under the photo tab, if you go over and select albums, we've created albums for each faction that have official paint schemes as we create them going into those albums. So if you you know, if you're curious, hey, you know, what do I want to paint my force as, you can go in there, check, you know, find the faction album, and then just go through the paint schemes that we've done so far, and those are all official paint schemes at this point, with the unit information in the information box. So I thought that would be really helpful. And then the final one is CAV Strike Operations HQ, and this is another fan page that, you know, a lot of us post to, and it's just a great place to meet up and, you know, just kind of talk CAV. You know, if you have rules questions, you can post there. It's all fan ran, so it's a lot of fun, and that's where a lot of us spend most of our time. So that being said, I'm gonna pause it here and then set up for the combat video. And then I'm going to go through and show you guys the basics of combat beyond the video we did yesterday. Guys, so the next thing we're going to cover is ranges. Alright, in this case, range bands. So you have 4 range bands in CAV. Short range is 6+, medium range is 7+, long range is 8+, and extreme range is 9+. Alright, so that's your base to hit number before any SAs modify any of those rolls. So in this case, there's actually also a fifth range band, though it's not technically a range band, and that's called point blank range. So if you're ever within 3 inches of a target, then you're at point blank range, and that's going to give you a +1 to your combat roll dice before anything else. So essentially, at short range, if you need a 6 to hit and you're at 3 inches, then you need a 5 to hit. So if you look at the data cards here for the Dictator, its range for its max is RNG 12, denoted by RNG with that number in parentheses there. And what that means is that MAC is at short range up to 12 inches. So again, twice that would be medium range, 3 times that is long range, and 4 times that is extreme range. So if we measure from the Dictator to the Starhawk here, we are at about 20, just past 24 inches, so we'll round up, we'll say 25 inches. So that's going to put the Dictator squarely into the long range band. And so if there was no blocking, no intervening terrain, and the Dictator wanted to make an attack on the Starhawk without any modifiers or anything, it would just automatically need an 8+ to hit. We're going to talk about salvo fire. So I went over salvo fire a little bit yesterday, but in reviewing the video, I noticed something that I could have clarified a little more, so I'm going to make that clarification now. So salvo fire is made with an indirect fire weapon, and only when you don't have line of sight on something. Well, no, I'm sorry, I take that back. It's best used when you don't have line of sight on something. There are CAVs that have nothing but indirect fire weapons, like the missile support CAVs. But in the situation like on the Dictator, where it's got the rocket launcher 10, salvo fire would best be used when there is no line of sight. So again, it's kind of like just a dummy fire rocket pack. So what I said yesterday in the video was that the Dictator spent an action to target lock, and I realized that I did that twice, making some people think that maybe a target lock was required for a strike point roll before you do an indirect attack. Now that's not the case. That just made it easier for the Dictator to potentially damage the Starhawk. So in just traditional salvo fire, with the Dictator here and the Starhawk over there, we already established that they were about 25 inches apart, which is going to put the Dictator into its medium range band for the light rocket 10, because the light rockets, their range is 14. So again, like we just said in the range bands, 14 is its short range, twice that's its medium range. Now the range band it's at is not so important, because a strike point roll is always a 10+, barring a few things. One is if you have line of sight to your target, then it becomes a 9+. Or if you are in the long range band, then you are going to -1 to whatever you roll, effectively making it an 11+. Or in the extreme range band, you're going to -2 to whatever you roll, effectively making it a 12+. So that being said, if the Dictator here wanted to, say he'd already moved, spend an action to do that, still no line of sight, so he wanted to do an indirect attack on the Starhawk, then first we would have to declare a strike point roll. We've already established that the Starhawk is within range to not have any kind of modifiers, being long range at the -1 or extreme range at the -2. And so it would basically be just a straight 10+, because there's no line of sight here, because that rock is blocking it in the way. So to do a strike point roll, it's just a 10+ right now. And again, we're not using a target lock to modify that number, so it's just a straight 10+. We got a 7, so that missed. And so then what we do, like I went over in the video yesterday, is do a drift dice. And a drift dice is a D10. Now I used a D8 yesterday. That was my mistake. That's just what I had on hand. I did find a D10, so we're using that now. You roll that D10 as close to the target model as possible. And then from the original strike point that you had intended to hit, the point on the dice is going to dictate where that's going to go. And the reason that's important, so that would actually land about here at 7 inches. That's important because if that rocket had landed on another CAV there, then you would do a combat roll against that CAV or that combat unit, whatever the case may be. Something else to notice with strike point rolls, if there's ever a critical fumble, which means you roll to see the strike point hit and you get snake eyes, then the player that controls the target unit, so in this case whoever's controlling the Starhawk, then gets to pick somewhere on the board within the firing arc and within the maximum range band of the unit making the strike point roll, where that lands, and then you roll deviation from there. So you know, if the Dictator was to roll Snake Eyes, and there was a a friendly unit for the Dictator moving over here, you could say, well, you know what, I want to try and drop that missed strike point on this unit that happens to be right here. And sometimes if the strike point drifts, you might roll this but get a 0, in which case it lands right where it's supposed to. So that's the basics of a strike point roll and indirect fire. The thing we're going to cover is salvo fire. All right, salvo fire is a very, very simple concept, and we'll go over that real briefly. So in essence, salvo fire is combining all weapons of one type into a single combat roll, and you're going to get a bonus for each additional weapon of that type. For example, some CAVs have 4 light particle bolt guns, so you'd be able to salvo fire all 4 of those light particle bolt guns into a single roll and get a +3. So you'd have the initial firing of the 1 particle bolt gun, and then for each additional one of that same type, in this case like a light particle bolt gun, you would get a +1. So for a unit with 4 of them, you'd get a +3 to your combat roll. So in the case of, we'll say, well, we've been playing a lot with the Dictator, so let's look at the Starhawk then. So we're going to say it's the Starhawk's turn to activate. It's going to spend an action to move. So I'm going to use this opportunity to go over the free move again. So in the case of navigating around this rock, we'll say he wants to use his free turn, which can be used at any point during your movement, move forward 6, and then spend a movement point to turn back into the direction he wants to be facing. So he actually only moved 6 inches, but now the Dictator is squarely in his front firing arc. So then you would say, okay, I'm going to salvo fire my rotary autocannons. Now on the data sheet for the Starhawk, its medium MRACs are range 12. So you've already established you're going to attack. Then you check the range. Range is 11, so you are at short range. And so short range being a 6+. Now the Starhawk, we haven't really gotten into him very much, but he does have an advanced targeting computer. However, since I used an action to move and I'm using an action to fire, I don't have an action left to use that targeting computer by establishing a target lock. So we're not going to get any bonus to that, but he does have Wizzo, so I'm going to get a +1 to whatever I roll for that. So at short range, I need a 6+. Wizzo's going to give me a +1, and then because I'm firing both autocannons, or I'm sorry, both MRACs in one combat roll, I'm going to get a +1 to that. So I get to add +2 to whatever it is I roll right here. So I got a 9. All right. My target point roll, or I'm sorry, yeah, my the number I needed to hit was a 6. So again, that's going to give me a margin of 3. So we'll take that 6 out. So the margin of success was 3. I get to add +2 to that, 1 for salvo and 1 for Wizzo. So that's going to give me a 5. And then I add the RAV of the medium MRACs, which is 6 to that. So that's a total modified number of 11. Then we check that against the armor on the Dictator. So 9, 10, 11, that's going to give us margin 3. And margin 3 is 1 point of damage with a pilot check. So then we take the D10. So next time this Dictator activates, it's going to be on its first damage track. And then it would take a pilot check. Now I'm double checking it here now, and for a margin of success 3 at 1 point of damage, it is just a pilot check. It's not modified like it was yesterday, and I did mess that up in the last video. So at a 6+, he stays standing, so he is good. All right, and so that is salvo fire, guys. So what we're covering now is something that all CAVs can do in the game, and that's called run and gun. And essentially what that is combining two move actions with a single shooting action by spending both of your action points. Now, you will take a negative modifier to both your movement and shooting by doing that, but it's kind of a good way of getting the extra burst of speed at a cost of just a little bit of accuracy. So normally when you do a run and gun, it's going to subtract 2 from your base movement. So in the case of the Starhawk, it's going to be a 5 instead of 7. 7 its normal movement. Using run and gun is going to reduce that to 5, but you do get to make 2 movement actions, so that's going to let it move up to 10 inches. And something to note as well is because you are doing 2 movement actions, you get up to 2 facing changes for free. Now what it does to the shooting portion of it is it gives you a -1 to your die roll for every weapon that you fire while performing run and gun. Some CAVs luckily have a great special ability called Assault, and it has a rating of 1, 2, or I think it even goes up to Assault 3, which basically negates that negative modifier to your shooting when doing a run and gun action. So I'll show you right now how that works. So I've already established that the Starhawk is going to do a run and gun, so instead of being able to double move for 14 like normal, it's only going to move for 5, or I'm sorry, for 10. So we're going to just move forward for 5, we're going to spend a free action, or a free turn to change facing, and then we're going to move forward an additional 5. Alright, so that brought it into what is hopefully short range for those MRACs. So we'll check that range now. Having already declared our attack, then now we can check range. Range is 9, so we are at short range. Short range for the MRACs on that thing is 12. So, and at this point, if the CAV did not have Assault, it would have to fire at short range, which is normally a 6+, but it would have a -1 to whatever it rolled, so it would essentially be an 8+ to hit with both of those MRACs. But because it does have Assault, it can fire up to 1 for each rating of the Assault. So in this case, the Starhawk has Assault 2, so it can fire up to 2 weapons at no penalty. So in this case, it would just be a normal short range 6+. The Starhawk does have Wizzo, so you get to add a +1 for Wizzo to whatever the die roll is. So we'll roll them individually. So we got a 9, which modifies to a 10. And then the second one would be a 6, which is what we needed, so there's no margin there, modified to a 7. And then, of course, you would resolve combat as normal then by taking the margin of success, adding the RAV of the weapon. In this case, the MRACs are RAV 6, and then comparing that to the armor on the Dictator. Alright, so now we're going to cover Overwatch. Overwatch costs 2 action points. And for the sake of demonstration, we're just going to say it's currently the Dictator's turn. The player controlling the Dictator says, you know what, I want to see what the Starhawk player is going to do, so I'm just going to spend both my actions, and I'm going to go into Overwatch. And then you place an Overwatch token down next to it, just as a reminder. Now, these tokens I had cut out of acrylic from a local company, but they are available for a free PDF download from talongames.com, and they're print them out on paper, cut them out, and use them. So with both the actions spent for the Dictator, it would then go to the Starhawk to activate. So we'll say the Starhawk player, maybe he he's on the other side of the table and he wasn't paying attention to what the Dictator player was doing, and so he's trying to get to something over in this area. And so the Starhawk would then say, okay, well, I'm going to spend both my actions to move as fast as I can and get to 14 inches, which is here. Right, so he'd start moving forward. As soon as he breaks line of sight with that Dictator, the Dictator player can then tell the Starhawk player to stop and then make a ranged attack on the Starhawk. If the Starhawk survives that attack, he gets to continue his movement. And that's the essential of Overwatch. Okay, so now I want to go over target lock and utilizing guided missiles as part of a direct fire attack. That's something that the Starhawk excels at because it has 2 MRACs and 2 medium guided missiles. It has the potential to throw a lot of firepower downrange, but it has to be in a proper position in order to utilize all that firepower, because remember, guided missiles have to have an active target lock in order to work. So we'll say, just for the sake of demonstration, that the last turn the Dictator activated, it made 2 shots, and they both missed. So now it's the Starhawk's turn to activate, and last turn it rounded that corner, chose to potentially, weather some incoming fire in order to use its target lock action. So as you can see here, I've got target lock indicators there, and I've got them for both blue and red, Terran and Rack, and they each have a number on them, and that's just if you have multiple units on the board, I can determine who's target locking who. But you can either use the little token that you can print out from talongames.com, and that works just the same. This is just for my personal preference. So the Starhawk has spin an action to target lock the Dictator, and now it's going to make its ranged attack rolls, or ranged combat rolls. So we'll check the range. Range is 20. Now the MRACs are range 12 and the guided missiles are range 16, so both of those are going to be squarely in the medium range band for a 7+. Now because we're using target lock, we also get to add in the advanced targeting computer 1 that the Starhawk has, and it also has Wizzo, so we're going to get to add 2 to whatever we roll. So we'll fire the MRAC first, and that's going to give us a 9 modified to an 11. Second MRAC, see, that is a 5, but we do get to modify that to a 7 with the targeting computer and the Wizzo. All right, now the guided missiles. Now remember, the guided missiles only work if you have a target lock. All right, so that's a 3. Now that's a miss because even with the +2 modification, we did not reach the minimum 7 we needed, so those get thrown out. And the second guided missile, and that's a 5, again modified to a 7 because of the targeting computer and Wizzo. Alright, so now that we've done all the dice rolling, we're going to figure out our margins of success. So we know our target to hit number was 7, so 11 minus 7 is going to give us 4, so we have a margin of success 4 there. Again, the RAV of the MRAC is 6, so that's going to be 10 versus the Dictator's armor of 8. That's a margin 2, so that's going to be 1 point of damage. So that MRAC has done its thing. Now going down to the guided missile. See, we needed 7, we hit 7 with the SAs, and so now we're relying on the strength of the guided missile to do the damage. Armor on the Dictator's 8, strength on that guided missile is only 5, so that's a glancing shot. It hit, but it's not doing any damage. Now, guided missiles have the Shock SA, and what Shock does is once that target officially strikes, even though the guided missile didn't do any damage, the Dictator in this case that took the shot still has to roll to see if it's suppressed, because the shock will cause a model to go into suppression. So in this case, shock for these guided missiles is 6, so the player controlling the Dictator would then roll 2d6, and he wants to beat 6. If he doesn't, the model goes into suppression. Alright, so he did beat it on that one, so he's fine. Okay, so now I'm going to go over briefly the process of shooting at an immobile target. It's very simple, but I felt like it was worth adding real quickly. So essentially, we'll say the Starhawk, it failed a piloting check, it took enough damage to get knocked down, whatever the case may be, and this Dictator wants to capitalize on that. So it would just be a standard range attack value, except firing at an immobile target is a +4 to your combat roll. That's huge. So in this case, we'll say, just because we talked about the bonus for getting within 3 inches to point blank range, let's say the Dictator is going to spend a action to move. He's going to move up to 3 inches to get into point blank, and then he'll use his second action to, we'll say, make a salvo strike. He's trying to, to finish the Starhawk off. So with the point blank range at a +1, so it's essentially going to be a short range at 6, +1 for salvo from the max. So you're looking at +1 for that, +4 for the immobile target, and then a well, it says no target lock there, but it does have Wizzos and a +1 for a Wizzo. So that is a +6 to whatever the dictator rolls. I mean, that could very potentially deal a couple extra tracks of damage, and if the Starhawk had a couple of tracks already, maybe put him down. So let's see what we get. Alright, so that was a good roll. Now remember, we have the Wizzo, so that's going to modify that to an 11. Alright, and then we get the +4 for the immobile target, and then an additional +1 for salvo. Alright, so right there we're looking at 16 with a margin of success of 10. Alright, so 10 versus the Starhawk's armor. We'll say, just for the sake of argument, that he's currently on damage track 5 before he got knocked down. So right now his armor is at 5. So we check the ranged assault damage table, and that's going to be 2 damage. So he would take an additional 2 damage and go to track 7. So as you can see, shooting at something when it's on the ground and immobile, you know, it's definitely going to add a good bit of punch. Okay, and the final thing I want to cover today is close combat, how to resolve it, and then how to break away. So if you have 2 models, they're in base to base, you can initiate a close combat attack. And the way that works is both players are then going to make opposed rolls and add the CCV of that model. Remember, the CCV is your close combat value. So we'll say the Starhawk player is rolling a 9 with a CCV, and we'll just say they're both on the damage track, they're both fresh, with a CCV of 6, and so that's going to increase that 9 to a 15. Alright, then the Dictator player will roll 2d6, and he gets a 4, so not nearly as good. And he has a CCV of 5, so he's going to increase that to a 9. Alright, so clearly here the Starhawk has the higher result. So what you then do is subtract the lowest from the highest number, and that gives you the margin of success. So in this case we would subtract 9 from 14 here, and that would give us a margin of 5. Now the losing player, and then with that margin you then consult the close combat assault damage table, and so a margin of 5 is 2 damage points to losing model. So the Dictator lost that combat, so he would take 2 points of damage. And close combat's just that simple. Now, say they both activated this turn, they've both done their combat actions, and we'll say the Dictator doesn't really like the way this is going, so he wants to break away. Now, what he would then do is roll 2d6 and add his close combat value, going for a 10 plus, right? So his combat value or his close combat value being a 5 plus, he's going to need at least a 5 on 2d6, and he gets a 4, so that fails. The Starhawk can continue to engage him. So we'll say maybe the Starhawk then wants to break away and go, pursue other targets. So the Starhawk's going to do the same thing with a close combat value of 6. So he's going to need a 4 or better. And he got 12. So yes, he clearly made it enough to break away. Now, when you break away, you get to back up at half your normal movement. So the Starhawk's movement is 7. So he could break away at up to a 4, because you round up. So he'd then be able to back up. Now, that takes 1 action to break away, as we covered in the video yesterday. Breaking away is a single-use action. Oh, I'm sorry, a one-time action. But now he still has another action. So if he wanted to, then he could then initiate a ranged attack shot at the Dictator. Alright guys, that's what I was planning on covering today. I'll get these videos all strung together, and hopefully you guys find it useful, find the information helpful, and if you like them, let me know, and I'll keep putting them together. One of these days, I think John's planning on doing some more professional videos, but hopefully these will serve to just kind of get you guys through until the really nice professional ones come along. All right, thanks for watching. And